This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television on Grey County. I'm Freddie Wallace along with Denise Reid, my co-host. Living Well, Giving Well, this is episode number 20, and it's hard to believe how fast our sequence has gone, but it's also interesting to see how educational and informative it has been for both Denise and for Reid. Our guest today will be Cheryl Cottrill along with LeGrand, and we'll be talking about our host charity, which is Huron Shores Hospice. And when we get around to our video segment today, we'll be taking a look at a nice video from the Women's Centre Grey Bruce. And whether it's Huron Shores Hospice or the Women's Centre Grey Bruce, we hope that you'll find it in your budget to donate now, but also to leave a gift in your will upon your passing to an organization that means a great deal to you. We want to talk about Living Well, Giving Well, Denise, and the concept that we have and how we're connected to Huron Shores Hospice and a dozen other charities.
Well, 20 episodes, really?
Yeah,
I can't believe it. I can't believe it, Fred. But anyways, I mean, the concept came about through Willard Vanderploeg from the Bright Shores Foundations and Stuart Reid of the Community Foundation. And I think they were trying to find a way to get to our community, get to our viewers, and they figured Rogers would be a good partner to do that. And talking about living well and giving well, I think living and giving are kind of, it can, you know, meld together there. Living in your community is that by giving in your community, donating, volunteering, and you know, we've had experts that have helped us learn, you know, lawyers and financial advisors, and we've had charities come on too and educate us. So I think it's been a great combination, living well, giving well, and looking forward to this episode and our future. Episode number 20, and I will give a little bit of a spoiler alert here. Denise won't be with us next week. Denise is living so well, she's going off to Curacao. But before we get to Curacao, we want to introduce our guest today and welcome back one of our guests today. Yeah, Will LeGrand was here last week from the Huron Hospice and Huron Shores Hospice, sorry. And you've asked, and we've brought on Cheryl Cottrill to help us learn a little more about the Huron Shores Hospice. And so we know a little bit about you from last week, but if you want to reiterate on that, and then we'll get Cheryl to give her little bio as well.
Yeah. So I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Huron Shores Hospice, and we are a 2-bed residential hospice in Tiverton, Ontario. That's generally serving the areas of Huron-Kinloss, Municipality of Kincardine, Saugeen Shores, and the surrounding area. And we provide compassionate end-of-life care at no cost to this community, in addition to grief support, end-of-life planning, death cafes, and a lot of other supports. And Cheryl, if I've got my information, you were the founder?
Yes, I was.
Of the hospice?
Yeah. One of the founders, yes.
One of. So
yeah.
Give us a little background on that.
So personally, I had some deaths quite quickly in my family, and I really did feel that we could do death better. So I got chatting with a couple of friends, and we had that conversation about how we could do that. And we started just looking at different options. And over a period of a couple of years, we kind of fell upon residential hospice as being what our community really needed to be able to support people at end of life. So we started a fundraising campaign, and then we got our charitable status, and yeah, the rest is history.
Wow.
Your smile just kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
And bigger. In the beginning, how daunting of a task was it? And obviously it was a challenge, but was it an exciting challenge or was it a daunting challenge?
Well, in the beginning, I don't think we had any idea what we were getting ourselves into. If we did, we may not have done it. So it was a bit daunting. Yeah. We came up against a lot of roadblocks, but we just worked through them, 3 very determined women, and worked through them, and we were able to open in May of 2016. So.
And watch out for 3 women.
3
that are working together.
People are telling you can't do something. Yeah, look out.
For sure. So I had in my notes
and death doula?
Okay, so we call ourselves end-of-life doulas.
Okay.
And yeah, so
I like that, end of life.
Yeah.
Rather than death
Yeah,
doula.
yeah.
End
Double
of
D.
life.
Yeah.
End of life.
So just as a birth doula helps mums prepare and come in, bring a little one into this world, we do the opposite. So we help people prepare at end of life, and then we can sit vigil with them while they die and support their family and just make the process a little bit more knowledgeable about what's going on.
So you're approaching a decade. Tell me about the successes that you've had and the growth that you've had. And again, your smile's just getting wider and wider, Cheryl. We may have to take a break here.
Yeah. So we opened our first suite within Tiverton Park Manor, so it's a retirement home, and that was really the only financial way that we could do it in our community, was to go into an existing facility.
Yeah.
So we opened the first room. We did it without government funding, so it was all community funded at that point. 2 years down the road, we opened a second suite because the need was there in the community, and we did get government funding, partial. So they're about a third of our funding comes through the government. And since then, we've added a ton of programs. So we do grief support, we do end-of-life planning workshops, which the doulas facilitate. We have death cafes. And that's a really interesting way to get people to come and just have the conversation about dying and death.
When you say death cafe, that puts an image in your head, but it's probably the exact opposite of what I would think of a death cafe.
Yeah, so it's much like this, right? We sit around, have coffee and sweets, and just talk about any topic that people want to talk about regarding dying and death. So people are looking for a safe place to have those conversations. We're pretty death defiant in our society, so they're happy to be able to sit down and kind of have those conversations, and we just talk about whatever they want to talk about for an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, and feeling comfortable that the people and where they're going are people that have the, I guess, expertise, knowledge, have maybe experienced, and can offer the gift that you have to them.
Yeah, so it really is an interesting concept. Most often, we don't have to jump in, like it's just free flowing, and they support each other. I mean, we're there for support if they need it, but yeah, the people that come into that community kind of support each other and talk about different ideas. And
it's a varied conversation, I'm sure, with lots of topics. Is there a common denominator that you see in your people that are using hospice or have family using hospice?
I think the main thing is that it's such a good support for them. By the time you come into hospice, families have been doing the caregiving themselves, and they might be a little worn out. And they're just, you can almost see when you do an admission that weight being lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah,
and they're
really.
so appreciative of the care that they get. And we don't all just care for the person in the bed who's dying. We also care for the family as a unit. So we provide care for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because sometimes, and I'm not, in our society or whatever, the person that is dying is the one people kind of think about the most. But the caregivers, have really been the ones that have really put that extra, or I'm not going to say effort, because it's not effort with your family.
Yeah.
You do it through love.
Yeah.
But it takes a toll.
Yeah,
on the caregivers.
It does, for sure. And the nice thing about hospice is when they come in, they can go back to their family role. So they can be a wife or a husband or a daughter or a son. They're no longer a caregiver because they're very different roles. Mm-hmm. And it's nice for them to, especially at end of life, to be able to go back into their family role and let us do the caregiving for them.
Cheryl, when Will was with us on the last program, or maybe you said it to us off air, I can't remember, but you said 100% satisfaction.
Yeah.
And can you elaborate on that and how great that feels to hear that, because we hear that in our neighborhood with Chapman House, and
Yeah.
I'm sure in the other hospices we hear it as well, but how gratifying is that, and how motivating is that?
Well, it's wonderful because, to be perfectly honest, when we started a hospice in 2018, we really didn't have any idea what we were doing. We knew what we wanted to do, but we visited a lot of different hospices and got their best practices, and we tried to implement all that. So the 100% 98% satisfaction rate from our families. It's just been so meaningful to us because we know we're doing something right.
And what did you learn in those steps when you went to see a working hospice before that? What stood out to you?
I think just the home-like atmosphere.
Right.
And the caring that went on in those places. Like hospice is just full of people, like even our volunteers, they're just the greatest people. They're lovely personalities and really caring people who I want to share what gifts they have with other people at end of life. And it's not an easy thing for some people to do.
And it's not everybody's personality
No, it
to
isn't.
do that.
Absolutely.
So obviously somebody, I think as volunteers, which we're all volunteers doing that, we gravitate towards whether we like it more, whether we think that's our gift, whatever. So I think when you're looking at your volunteers, it doesn't surprise me that they're caring and loving and giving, because that's what they would gravitate towards. So I'm just wondering so as we've talked about hard conversations of wills. Okay, we've got our will. Hard conversation of, okay, what's our funeral going to be like, or whatever. In our family, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want, how do we get to the space or the conversation individually or as a family saying, okay, we want to think about the end of living plan?
Yeah, so it is a difficult conversation for sure. So a great opening for your audience would be, I watched this great show on Rogers the other day, and they were talking about end-of-life planning, and open the conversation that way. Or they might have seen a TV show that really addressed this. Or they might have had not such a great experience in their own family, and they say, we don't want this to happen, and I don't want this to happen to me. So here's what I want to do to make sure that doesn't happen. If you ask your family for help to do this, they're more liable to be open to it, because we all want to help each other, right?
Right.
So that's one way that we tell people to go about it. Just say, I really need your help with this. Maybe your doctor suggested you do it. Like, there's lots of openings there. Might be a movie that you're watching together, and you say after the movie, oh my goodness, like, we really should talk about this. And we suggest people do the work first to try and figure out what they want at end of life, and then, like, I actually know someone who had a death potluck, and they invited their children to a potluck. They called it a death potluck. Their children were quite intrigued.
They knew it was called a death potluck?
They knew it was called a death potluck.
Okay.
So what Mom did was she sent out the copy of her end-of-life plan beforehand. She said, you can have a look at it. You're willing to you're more than willing to comment on it if you want to. You cannot change my mind. And I will explain to you why I've made my decisions. So they all came together and ate together, and then they had this chat.
Wow.
I'm curious what was served. We'll get
I wasn't there, so I don't know. I haven't got that.
We'll get to that when we come back. How's that? So our guests today are LeGrand and Cheryl Cottrill. They're representing our host charity today, which is Huron Shores Hospice. And again, you can find more information at huronshoreshospice.ca. When we come back, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to have a feature video today, and we'll be spotlighting the Women's Center of Grey Bruce. So that's coming up, and we'll have more with Cheryl and Will when we continue with Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County.
Hi, I'm Heather Sheldrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Center Grey Bruce. The Women's Center Grey Bruce was founded in 1982 to be a safer place for women, children, and youth who are fleeing violence in the communities of Grey and Bruce counties. The Women's Center operates 3 major programs and facilities that are all located here in Owen Sound. First one that most people are probably quite familiar with is the Violence Against Women Emergency Shelter, and that is for women, children, and youth who are fleeing abusive situations due to gender-based violence or intimate partner violence. We also operate what is known as second stage transitional housing, which is a 12-unit geared to income housing complex. And then our newest program is the Anti-Human Trafficking for Youth program, and it's an 8-bed, 24-staff supervised residential program for youth who have been or are at risk of being trafficked. Each year, more than 160 women and children receive emergency shelter services from the Women's Center Grey Bruce. We receive over 1,300 crisis calls each year on our 24/7 crisis hotline. People usually go about donating to us by either phoning and making an appointment to drop off at our administrative offices, but they can certainly go on our website, and people can email donations@thewomenscenter.org. A message to the women and youth in the community, I say, you do not have to face this crisis alone. We are here for you. We are here to help and support the community of Grey and Bruce.
Welcome back to Rogers Television Grey County and our program Living Well, Giving Well. I'm Fred Wallace along with Denise Reid, and our guests today are LeGrand and along with Cheryl Cottrill representing Huron Shores Hospice, which is our host charity today. You just saw a video for the Women's Centre Grey Bruce, and of course on behalf of the Women's Centre we want to remind you that they do have a program called the Alliance, which is a monthly donation process, and you can always get more information at thewomenscenter.org. But back to our show today, Denise, and more topics on Huron Shores Hospice.
Well, yeah, I think we wanted to talk a little bit more of the end-of-life planning book, or how do we go about it?
Okay, so the doulas at Huron Shores Hospice put together a book from a lot of research that we had done. And this is really a workbook to get you to the point where you can make your end-of-life plan. So it has some worksheets in it to talk about what's important to you and you know, what kind of care you would want at end of life. And you work through that, and then we give you a little template at the end that you can build your end of life plan. So you might include, for instance, all your investments and all your financial information could go into that book. So everything's in one place so that your someday executor only has to go to one place. What we suggest you do is a when I die box. And this is just a box that you can buy at Michael's or the dollar store that you put all your information in that doesn't need to be in your safety deposit box, but your safety deposit box key would need to be in the when I die box.
Yes.
So all your financial information could go in there. Passwords, big one. We're in a digital age.
Passport.
Passwords.
Oh, passwords.
Passwords.
I was saying passport.
So all your passwords. I have like a document's probably 4 pages long at home of all my different passwords. So that could go in there so that somebody can, close out your accounts after you're gone. You might want to think about your social media accounts. Do you want those to survive you, or do you want those to be shut down? They could be a legacy page, or they could be closed down, but somebody has to be named to do that. So there's like Meta, for instance, has a place that you can go and put a legacy person in. That person would look after these things when you're gone. So these are all things that you kind of need to think about. And then just simple things like, where are your snow tires stored? Do your kids know that? Or would your executor know that? Right?
Absolutely
Most people,
not.
yes. So simple things like that. So the whole idea is this is going to be the greatest gift that you ever give to your family, because you're going to have everything done and make it easy for them. And we all want that. We want to make things easier for our family. So everything's in one place. We've kind of thought through all this stuff and know what we want for end-of-life care. So do we want CPR administered after a certain age? All of those kinds of things we would put into our advanced care plan. And and then we just kind of sit down and write it all out. And then the big thing is sharing it.
Yeah.
Because if you've named a substitute decision maker who's going to speak on your behalf, if you cannot speak for yourself, and you haven't told them what your wishes are, they're making decisions based on their own values and principles, not yours, right? So really important to have the conversation. Same with your executor. You have to know where the important papers are, right? So copy of your will can go in your when I die box, saying where your will is kept. So it's usually kept, the original of the law firm that wrote it up, but make sure that they know what law firm it's at. Any information like that they're going to need, cemetery plot deeds, funeral arrangements, all of that stuff can be in one place, so that when when you can't speak for yourself, your substitute decision maker knows where to go to look for that information, and then when you're gone, your executor knows.
You've spoken for yourself in advance. Is that easy to get people to do?
It is not easy to get people to do. We are a very death-defiant society. And I mean, when you think about years ago, our grandparents grew up in an age, or my grandparents grew up in an age where death happened in the home, right? Grandma died at home. She was cared for at home. When she died, she was moved into the parlor. People came in and paid their condolences, and then she was buried out of the home. In the 60s, when we started building all kinds of hospitals, we handed that dying piece off to the hospitals, and then we handed the death piece off to the funeral homes.
Right.
So it's kind of been behind closed doors, and we've distanced ourselves a little bit from death because we're not seeing it happen anymore. And it's kind of created this unwillingness to talk about it. So it's important that we have these conversations. They're difficult conversations, but they're really important conversations, because if I'm dying and I haven't expressed what my wishes are, how can I expect to have the death that I wanted to have if I can't speak for myself?
And I think it's, as you said, it's a gift that I need to give to my kids.
Absolutely.
Or to my husband, so that, they know what I want. They know what needs to be done, and then when they're hopefully grieving at the time that I'm not around, that they're not having to do the business part of it. They can take care of the personal.
Yeah, there's really good research out there that suggests that this plan, if you do this plan, and if the kids can kind of work to the plan, so if anybody who's sat vigil with someone who's dying knows it's a long and exhausting process, even though you're just sitting there. Right? If you do a plan and say, I want this kind of music, I would like this prayer said, these kinds of things, what's going on in the room, who's there, and if you have that plan done, the family actually can work to that plan.
For sure.
And then they feel like they've given you a meaningful death, and you got the death that you wanted.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
You can't always work to the plan, because death isn't the same for everybody, right? So you also have to say to your family, hey, this may not all work out, and that is just fine, because the last thing you want to do is leave them with the guilt that they didn't do what you wanted them to do.
Wow. A great story with my mother's funeral. She wanted Hank Snow, I'll Fly Away, as the song ended. Right. And somehow, Hank Snow turned into Alan Jackson. And I went, oh no. But my cousins, who are all country music fans, they thought it was the greatest thing ever that Alan Jackson was singing I'll Fly Away. So I went, okay, I guess we're going to get through this kind of nicely.
Right,
so. But there was still that tinge of guilt, as you say. I wanted to ask about the doula process. How many doulas are there, and how does somebody become a doula, or can somebody become a doula?
Yes, so we have 4 doulas, trained doulas at Huron Shores Hospice. 3 of us were trained through an organization called ENELDA. So it's a national, or it's a international organization, and we took our training. They're situated in the U.S., but they do international. We took our training. I did it in person. The other 2 did it online because it was during COVID, and it's a pretty intensive few days of training. But they set you up for what you need to know to be an end-of-life doula and to support people.
Do all hospices have doulas?
Not all hospices.
No. Would it be nice for all hospices?
That would be lovely if all hospices had doulas.
And do you have a need at Huron Shores specifically for doulas, or more doulas?
We are expanding next year. We're adding 1 more doula to our group, which is good. So what we do at Huron Shores Hospice is when someone puts down that they would like to come to Huron Shores Hospice when the time is right for them to do so, a doula goes and visits them.
Okay.
And we do what we call a 1-page profile, which talks about what good care means to them, kind of who they are, so they don't have to explain to everybody as they come into the room who they, what they did for a living, how many kids they have, all that kind of stuff. It's all in one document. So we start there. And then we offer our services to do maybe some legacy projects. So for one lady, I did her life story. She died during COVID, and her family was in the US, and they couldn't come to visit. So we did a whole book up of her life story that she could share with her son and her grandkids, which was really a lovely thing for them to have. Yeah. It might be as easy as just writing names of people on the back of photos. so they don't get thrown out, because if it's an old photo and they don't know who they are, it's going to go in the garbage.
Yes. So what is somebody's treasure might not be quite
exactly.
as
But if they
meaningful.
can see that was their great-great-grandfather, they might keep it. So it might be as easy as that. It could be writing a love letter just to their family and expressing how much their family has meant to them. That can be read after they die.
Right. Or maybe getting a box.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe getting there.
Yeah, that's
When I
right.
die box.
Yeah, there. The thing, we talk about you have a will. Okay, you got your will. Okay, but there's a team here. Like you have your lawyer, you have your financial advisor, we had a tax, but now we have end of life too. Like it needs, there's people working together to get the same. Well, making it easier, I guess.
Making it meaningful, I think.
Meaningful,
Yeah,
that's a better
I think
word.
really that's what it's all about, is making it meaningful for the person who is dying or who could die. I mean, we really recommend you do this at age 18 and change it over the years, right? Because you don't know.
Yes.
Life can throw you curveballs.
Right.
So that's what we recommend, but it can happen. You can start today. That's the big message, is start right away and get it done and take your time doing it. Like, look at our workbook, download it, work on it online. It's a fillable PDF. And do it a little bit at a time. So read, through the first chapter and then go away and think about it and then come back and kind of fill it in.
I think Judy Rich, when she was with us on our last episode, she said about wills, start today. We have to stop now. It's been a great conversation, but before we go, Will, what's your next step with community engagement for Huron Shores Hospice?
So you can go to our website, www.huronshoreshospice.ca, and that's a great way to learn more about what we're doing. We've got a monthly newsletter that keeps you updated there, and if you're interested in donating, you'll be able to find that on our page as well. And we really appreciate everyone's support for making our work in the hospice possible.
Well, thanks for sharing with us. Cheryl, before you go, the priority for people that are interested in being connected with you.
Definitely start with the workbook, and then if they need help with that, they can call Huron Shores Hospice and we'll be happy to help them out if we can. We do have end-of-life workshops coming up in 2025 in April. So we have April 14th, 1 to 4 at the Lucknow Legion. April 16th at the Davidson Center in Kincardine from 1:30 to 3:30, and then on Thursday, April 24th at the PowerLink building in Port Elgin from 7 to 9.
It's interesting that April 14th would be my father's 100th birthday. So
you go.
I've got that circled on the calendar. We want to thank Will and Cheryl for joining us today. This is Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television. Again, Huron Shores Hospice is our host charity this time around, and we also had a nice video from the Women's Center of Grey Bruce. Whether it's those charities or something else that's near and dear to you, we hope that you'll leave a gift in your will. Thanks for joining Denise and I today on Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television, Grey County.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
When I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, I was deteriorating in front of everybody.
All my life I lived with sickle cell. I went through a tragic crisis that put me in a coma for 3 weeks. While I was in there, I received a lot of blood to put me in a healthier state.
I was given the plasma then through IVIG. Even though that happened so long ago, it still has a massive impact on me today.